June 19th, 1962. Nervenich Air Base, West Germany. 4 F-104 Starfighters roll into formation above 10,000 spectators. These aren't rookies. These are West Germany's finest instructors. American Captain John Speer leads the Diamond. Behind him, 3 German flight leaders. They're rehearsing for Defense Minister Strauss. The ceremony is in 3 days. At 9:42, the formation tightens, wingtip to wingtip. Then one aircraft pitches left. The Diamond collapses. All 4 jets cartwheel into the ground. 4 fireballs. 4 dead pilots. 0 survivors. The official report blames pilot error. The fuel records tell a different story. So do the bank transfers. Officially, the F-104 Starfighter was a Cold War necessity. West Germany needed jets. Lockheed had jets. Simple transaction. Quietly, $22 million moved through Swiss accounts to officials on 4 continents' ministers, princes, prime ministers, presidents. In Germany alone, 1 in 3 starfighters crashed. 116 pilots died. The airplane earned a nickname, Widowmaker. But here's the question nobody asked in 1962. If the jet was so dangerous, why did so many governments buy it anyway? The answer was hidden in classified memos, Senate testimony, and one whistleblower who refused to stay silent. My name is Dr. Rowan Halberg. I spent 15 years inside the Air Force Historical Research Agency, analyzing declassified files most people will never see. My doctoral work at Edinburgh focused on Cold War aviation procurement, the hidden deals, the buried truth, the files governments hoped would stay closed. This channel exists to decode that history. Every aircraft has secrets. We recover them. Now let's go back to June 1962. Back to the deal that killed. Captain John Speer was 31 years old. USAF exchange pilot, 2,000 hours, fighter instructor. He'd flown F-86 Sabres in Korea, survived that war. Now he's training German pilots on the Starfighter. He knows the jet. He knows its limits. Short wings, high wing loading, unforgiving in slow flight. The Starfighter is a rocket with a cockpit. It climbs like nothing else. Mach 2 on the deck. But tight formation aerobatics? That's not what this jet was designed for. Here's what we're going to uncover. First, how the F-104 became Germany's frontline fighter when safer options existed. Second, the money trail connecting Lockheed executives to European defense ministers. Third, the June 1962 disaster, and why Germany's top ace called it predictable. Fourth, the whistleblower who broke the story and paid the price. And finally, the Senate hearings that exposed aviation's greatest corruption scandal. Stick with me, because by the end, you'll see why this wasn't just about jets. It was about who decides which pilots live and which pilots die. Let's start with the airplane itself, because the F-104 wasn't supposed to be a multi-role fighter. It was designed by Kelly Johnson at Lockheed Skunk Works. Johnson's team built the U-2 spy plane. They built the SR-71 Blackbird, pure speed machines. The F-104 was no different. First flight in 1954. Purpose: intercept Soviet bombers at high altitude. Climb fast, fire missiles, get out, that's it. The wings were thin, razor thin, 7.5 inches at the root, sharp enough to slice your hand if you touch the leading edge. Span, 21 feet. For comparison, an F-16 has a 31-foot wingspan. Less wing means less lift at low speed, less margin for error. The Starfighter earned another nickname from pilots, the missile with a man in it. Now here's where the story shifts. By 1958, NATO needs new fighters. The old F-84s and F-86s are obsolete. West Germany, rebuilding its air force after World War II, needs jets fast, so does Italy. The Netherlands, Japan, Belgium, countries across Europe and Asia are shopping. Lockheed has a problem. The U.S. Air Force only ordered 296 F-104s. Production is winding down. The company needs foreign sales, or the production line shuts. So, Lockheed goes hunting for contracts. Which number lies to you here? The wingspan, the safety record, or the sales pitch? In 1958, Lockheed hires a consultant, Hubert Weisbrod, former Luftwaffe officer, well-connected in Bonn. His job, convince West Germany to buy the F-104, not a few dozen, hundreds. Germany's defense minister is Franz Josef Strauss. He controls procurement. One man, one signature. Strauss is ambitious. He wants to be chancellor someday. He needs money for his political party. He needs influence. Lockheed needs contracts. You see where this goes. According to Senate testimony years later, at least $10 million flowed from Lockheed to individuals connected to Franz Josef Strauss payments routed through Swiss banks, shell companies, middlemen. The money moved quietly. No official record in German procurement files. Why? Because in 1962, those files were destroyed. Not all of them, just the ones tied to the F-104 deal. Convenient. Here's a question for you. If a government destroys its own procurement records right after signing a contract, is that standard procedure or evidence of guilt? Drop your answer in the comments, cite a year or a source if you've got one. West Germany orders 916 F-104s, largest foreign order in aviation history at that time. The jets start arriving in 1960. Training begins, and almost immediately, jets start falling out of the sky. 3 months into service, Germany loses its first F-104. Pilot ejects, survives. 2 weeks later, another crash. Pilot dead. By the end of 1961, Germany has lost 12 starfighters, 12 aircraft, 11 pilots killed. The Luftwaffe's accident rate is climbing faster than the jets. American pilots flying the same aircraft in the U.S. don't have these problems. Why? Different mission profiles. The USAF uses the F-104 as a high-altitude interceptor. Fly straight, fly fast, fire, land. Germany is using it for low-altitude strike missions, ground attack, close air support. NATO doctrine demands flexibility. One jet for every role. The Starfighter wasn't built for that. Short wings can't pull high G turns at low altitude without bleeding speed. Bleed too much speed and the jet departs controlled flight. Pilots call it a departure. Engineers call it an unrecoverable stall. Either way, you're punching out or you're dead. The manual says don't fly below 250 knots in a turn. German doctrine says intercept targets at 200 knots. Which one wins? The physics or the orders? By 1962, the crashes are so frequent that German newspapers start calling it the flying coffin. Politicians are asking questions. Families are demanding answers. The Luftwaffe needs to prove the jet is safe. Prove it works. Prove Germany didn't waste billions on a widowmaker. So Defense Minister Strauss schedules a demonstration June 22, 1962. Nervenich Air Base. A ceremony. A formation flight. Show the public the Starfighter is under control. They pick 4 pilots. Captain John Speer, the American exchange officer. Major Gerhard Richter, a Luftwaffe instructor with 3,000 hours. Major Ernst Schneider and Captain Wolfgang Meyer, 2 of Germany's top flight leaders. These men aren't gamblers. They're professionals. They know the jet. They know each other. They brief the rehearsal. Diamond formation. Tight spacing. Basic aerobatics. Nothing extreme. Just prove the jet can fly pretty. June 19th, 1962. Rehearsal day, 9:30 local time. 4 F-104s taxi at Nurvanish. Weather is perfect, clear skies, light wind. 10,000 spectators line the fence. The formation takes off. Gear up, climb. Level at 5,000 feet. The diamond tightens. Wingtip clearance drops to 3 feet. Then 2. Radio chatter is calm, professional. Then at 9:42, Major Richter's jet pitches left. His wingtip slices into Captain Spear's fuselage. Both jets disintegrate. Richter's aircraft tumbles, Spear's nose snaps off. The fireball expands. Major Schneider, flying number 3, pulls hard right to avoid the debris. His jet stalls, inverted, nose drops, impact, explosion. Captain Meyer, number 4, tries to recover, pulls up. Too slow, too low. The jet mushes, hits the ground. 4th fireball, 4 crashes, 13 seconds, 0 survivors. The official investigation blames spatial disorientation, pilot error. But here's the problem. John Spear was flying lead. He didn't move. Gerhard Richter initiated the collision. Richter had 3,000 hours. He knew better. So what happened? The accident report mentions one detail buried on page 18, wind shear. A localized gust at 5,000 feet. Richter's jet encountered it first. The gust tipped his wing. He corrected, overcorrected, drifted into Spear. That's the official version. But why were they flying that close in the first place? Why rehearse formation aerobatics in a jet notorious for stall departures? And why was this demonstration so important to Defense Minister Strauss that 4 of Germany's best pilots died practicing for it? The answer walks onto the base that afternoon. Günter Rahl arrives at Nurvanish around 1400 hours. Rahl is a legend, 3rd highest scoring ace in history. 275 aerial victories in World War II survived the war. Now he's a Luftwaffe general, inspector of the Air Force. He hears about the crash, drives to the base, looks at the wreckage, looks at the flight plan. Then he asks the question nobody wanted to hear. Are you insane? Formation aerobatics with this bird? Rahl knew the F-104. He'd flown it. He understood its limits. Tight formations demand smooth inputs, gentle corrections. The Starfighter doesn't do gentle, it's binary, on or off, fast or stalled. Rahl told his staff the demonstration should never have been planned. He was overruled. Defense Minister Strauss wanted it. Strauss got it. 4 men paid the price. Was the Nurvanish disaster a training failure or a design failure? If you had to pick one cause, which is it? And if you're a pilot or an engineer, tell us why in the comments. Bring evidence. Bring a squadron or a year. The crashes don't stop after Nurvanish. They accelerate. 1963, 24 F-104s lost. 19 pilots dead. 1964, 31 jets lost. 23 pilots dead. By 1965, the German public is demanding the Starfighter be grounded. Luftwaffe pilots are refusing to fly it. Some resign. Others transfer to transport squadrons. Anything to avoid the F-104. Widows form advocacy groups. Newspapers publish crash statistics. The pressure mounts. Franz Josef Strauss defends the jet. He blames pilot training. He blames NATO mission requirements. He blames everything except the procurement process. And he definitely doesn't mention the money. Because by 1965, Strauss has bigger problems. The scandal is spreading. The Netherlands is next. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands is Queen Juliana's husband. He's also the Inspector General of the Dutch Armed Forces. In that role, he advises on military procurement. In 1962, the Netherlands orders 138 F-104s, same year as Germany, same jet, same Lockheed sales team, and according to later testimony, the same payment structure. $1.1 million moves from Lockheed to Prince Bernhard, not directly, through a Swiss account, through a middleman named Hubert Weisbrod. Yes, the same consultant working the German deal. Small world. The payment is hidden for 13 years. Then in 1975, a whistleblower surfaces. His name is Ernest Hauser. He's a former Lockheed consultant. He has documents, ledgers, memos, names, amounts, and he goes to the press. The story breaks in August 1975. Dutch newspapers explode. The government launches an inquiry. Prince Bernhard denies everything. Then the investigators produce the bank records, transfers dated 1962. Bernhard's signature. He changes his story, admits to receiving the money, calls it a gift, not a bribe. The Dutch parliament isn't buying it. Queen Juliana threatens to abdicate unless Bernhard resigns. He resigns. He keeps his royal title, but his military role is over. $1.1 million cost him his career. If a royal accepts money tied to a military contract, is that a gift or a bribe? Where's the line? And if you were Dutch in 1976, would you want him prosecuted or just removed? Let me know your stance. Now let's fly to Japan. In 1972, Japan needs a new fighter. The F-4 Phantom is aging. Lockheed pitches the P-3 Orion Maritime Patrol aircraft. Not a fighter, but Japan's procurement works differently. Multiple contracts, multiple agencies. Lockheed wants in, so does Grumman, so does McDonnell Douglas. The competition is fierce. Lockheed hires another consultant, Yoshio Kodama, former intelligence officer. Yakuza connections. Kodama has access. He knows Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka personally. Money flows $7 million to Kodama. Some of it lands with Tanaka's office. Tanaka pushes the Lockheed contract. Japan orders the P-3. Tanaka gets paid. The scandal breaks in 1976, same time as the Dutch investigation. U.S. Senate hearings expose the payments. Japanese prosecutors move fast. They arrest Tanaka. He's convicted in 1983. 4 years in appeals. He dies before serving time. But the conviction stands. A sitting prime minister brought down by Lockheed's cash. Italy's turn. President Giovanni Leone. 1971. Italy orders 104 F-104s as part of NATO upgrades. Another Lockheed contract. Another payment scheme. Senate testimony later reveals $2 million moved to Italian officials. Investigators tie some of it to Leone's circle. The evidence is murky. Denials fly. But the pressure works. Leone resigns in 1978. No conviction, no trial, just resignation. Lockheed's money claimed another government leader. 4 countries, 4 scandals, 1 airplane, and back in the United States, nobody's talking about it, until one man breaks the silence. Ernest F. Hauser worked for Lockheed in the 1960s. Marketing consultant. He helped structure the foreign sales campaigns. He knew about the payments. He saw the ledgers. He didn't participate directly, but he knew. For years, he stayed quiet. Then in 1975, he couldn't anymore. He contacted Senator Frank Church's office. Church was running hearings on corporate bribery. Hauser had the documents Church needed. The Senate hearings begin in February 1976. Hauser testifies. He He brings copies of contracts, payment authorizations, Swiss bank account numbers. He names names. Lockheed CEO Daniel Houghton is called. A. Carl Kachian, president of Lockheed, testifies. They admit payments were made. They call them commissions. Standard business practice overseas, they say grease payments, facilitation fees. Senator Church doesn't buy it. He asks a simple question. If these payments were legitimate, why were they hidden? Silence. Here's the question. If every defense contractor in the 1960s and 70s paid foreign officials, does that make it acceptable or just widespread corruption? Which side are you on? Was this industry standard or criminal enterprise? Back your answer with a source. Now let's talk numbers, because the human cost is staggering. West Germany alone lost 292 F-104s out of 916 delivered. 32% attrition rate, 116 pilots dead. That's not a safety record. That's a slaughter. The Netherlands lost 44 jets. Italy lost 138. Belgium lost 40. Japan lost 36. Added up across all operators, and you're looking at over 700 F-104s lost worldwide. And these aren't combat losses. These are training accidents, mechanical failures, pilot error induced by design flaws. Lockheed's internal memos, declassified decades later, show the company knew about the German crash rate as early as 1963. Engineers recommended design changes, larger wings, better stall warning systems, more pilot training. None of it happened fast enough. Why? Retooling costs money, slows production, delays deliveries. And delays mean angry customers. Customers who might cancel contracts. Customers who might ask for their bribes back. Let me explain why this matters beyond just one airplane. The F-104 scandal changed how governments buy weapons. After the Church hearings, Congress passed the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in 1977. That law makes it illegal for U.S. companies to bribe foreign officials. Sounds obvious now. But before 1977, there was no law against it. Bribery was legal, routine, expected. The F-104 deal was so egregious, so public, so deadly, that it forced legal reform. But here's the twist. Enforcement is weak. Penalties are light. And the law only applies to U.S. companies. European and Asian defense contractors still operate in gray zones. The market adapted. Bribes became consulting fees. Middlemen became agents. The money still flows. It's just better hidden. Now let's be fair. Lockheed's defense at the time had some merit. They argued that without foreign sales, U.S. defense companies couldn't survive. The Pentagon's orders weren't enough to sustain production. Foreign contracts kept factories open, kept engineers employed, kept innovation funded. And in the Cold War, having a strong domestic defense industry was a national security priority. If refusing to pay bribes meant losing contracts to French or British competitors who would pay, wasn't that strategic suicide? They also argued the F-104's crash rate in Germany was partly due to how Germany used the jet. Low-altitude missions in bad weather, inadequate pilot training time pressure to rush pilots through conversion courses. The Luftwaffe wanted the same capability as the U.S. Air Force, but wasn't willing to invest in the same training infrastructure. That's a procurement failure on Germany's side, not just Lockheed's fault. And technically, some of those payments weren't bribes in the classic sense. They were commissions paid to sales agents, agents who happened to have connections, agents who happened to be relatives of ministers, agents who happened to share their commissions with decision makers. Legal gray zone, not black and white. But here's where that defense collapses. If the payments were legitimate, why route them through Swiss banks? Why use shell companies? Why destroy the German procurement records in 1962? And most damning of all, why did 4 government leaders resign or get convicted if this was just normal business? The timeline contradicts the official story. Germany signs the F-104 contract in 1959. Payments to Strauss's network begin in 1960. First jets arrive in 1960. Crashes begin immediately. By 1962, the German press is screaming about safety. By 1962, Lockheed is paying more money to keep the contract alive. And in 1962, the procurement documents vanish. That's not coincidence. That's a cover-up. So what actually happened? Let me walk you through the most likely sequence based on the evidence. 1. Lockheed needed foreign sales to survive. That's true. Production lines don't run on good intentions. They run on contracts. 2. Lockheed hired consultants with political connections. That's standard. Every major defense contractor does it. 3. Those consultants recommended paying key decision-makers directly, not through official channels, off the books. That's where it turned criminal. 4. Lockheed executives approved the payments. They knew what the money was for. They knew where it was going. Senate testimony confirms this. Daniel Houghton, Lockheed's CEO, admitted under oath that payments were made to secure contracts. 5. The payments worked. Germany bought 916 jets. The Netherlands bought 138. Italy bought 104. Japan bought in. Contracts worth billions, Lockheed survived. The Starfighter production line stayed open. 6. The jets started killing pilots. Design flaws became body counts. Germany's losses were catastrophic. Lockheed knew. Internal memos prove it. But fixing the problem meant admitting the problem. Admitting the problem meant refunds, investigations, lawsuits. So instead, they blamed pilot error. They blamed training. They blamed weather. 7. Whistleblowers emerged. Ernest Hauser, others. They brought documents. The Senate couldn't ignore it. The church hearings exposed everything. Payments, cover-ups, the whole network. 8. Partial justice. Prince Bernhard resigned. Tanaka was convicted. Leon resigned. Strauss never touched. He died in 1988. No charges, no trial. Germany's 1 in 3 crash rate never led to prosecution, because the files that could have proven his guilt were destroyed in 1962. So here's what we're left with. 116 German pilots dead, 44 Dutch pilots, 38 Italian pilots, 23 Japanese pilots, over 700 F-104s destroyed, $22 million in bribes, 4 government leaders removed from power, and Lockheed, they paid a fine, reformed their sales practices, survived, built the F-16, built the F-22, built the F-35, became one of the most successful defense contractors in history. The F-104 scandal taught the defense industry a lesson. Don't get caught. The bribes didn't stop. They evolved. The crash rates, those got better. Not because jets got safer overnight, but because training improved. Doctrine changed. Engineers finally got the resources to fix design flaws. The Starfighter eventually became a decent interceptor, in the hands of well-trained pilots, in the missions it was designed for. But for Germany, the Netherlands, and others who used it in roles it couldn't handle, the cost was unforgivable. Was the F-104 a marvel misused, or a design that should never have been exported? If you could go back to 1959 and advise NATO, would you approve the purchase? Or would you demand different jets? Tell me your reasoning. Cite a specific alternative if you have one. And here's the harder question. If Franz Josef Strauss took $10 million to buy a jet that killed 116 of his own pilots, why wasn't he prosecuted? Why did he die a free man? Was the evidence truly destroyed? Or did someone in Bonn decide prosecution was too politically dangerous? I don't have that answer. The files are gone. Strauss's inner circle stayed loyal. The German government never reopened the case. But the silence speaks. When procurement records vanish and nobody asks why, you know the corruption went higher than one defense minister. If you want to support this kind of deep investigative work, there's a link in the description. It helps fund archive access, document retrieval, the research that makes these episodes possible. No pressure. But if this kind of truth matters to you, it's there. Before we close the file, let me leave you with one last detail. In 1984, Günther Rahl gave an interview to a German aviation magazine. By then, he'd retired. The Starfighter was being phased out. The interviewer asked him about Nervenich, about June 19, 1962, about the 4 men who died rehearsing for Strauss's ceremony. Rahl's response was quiet, measured, but it cuts deep. We wanted to prove the jet was safe. We wanted to show the public we had control. So we asked 4 of our best men to fly it in formation, tight formation. The kind of flying that jet was never meant to do. And we lost them, all 4, in 13 seconds. You tell me, was that proving safety? Or was that proving we'd made a mistake and didn't want to admit it? That's the real legacy of the F-104 scandal. Not the bribes, not the resignations, not even the crash rate. It's the institutional refusal to admit a mistake until the bodies force the question. And if you think that era is over, if you think modern procurement is clean, I have files that will make you reconsider. The F-35, the V-22 Osprey, the Zumwalt destroyer. Every generation has its starfighter. We just call it by different names. So, here's my final question for you. In your opinion, what's the current aircraft or defense program that most resembles the F-104 scandal? Where do you see the same patterns? Cost overruns, performance gaps, political pressure, questionable procurement. Drop your answer. Bring a source. Let's debate it. Again, if this work matters to you, support link is in the description. And next time, we're opening a file that's even messier. The YF-23 versus F-22 competition, 2 stealth fighters, 1 contract, and a decision that made no technical sense. Why did the Air Force pick the plane they picked, and who benefited? That file drops soon. Don't miss it. I'm Dr. Rowan Halberg. This is Black Box Stories. Every aircraft has secrets. We recover them. Stay sharp. Stay skeptical. And remember, the official record is just the first draft. The truth is in the files they tried to bury.